In the 4th millennium BC, as civilization progressed to new heights in ancient Mesopotamia, so too did international trade for highly prized items such as copper, tin, lapis lazuli, and other commodities that were deemed necessary for the growth of society. The city that led the way in such trade was Uruk, but in the centuries that followed, others, such as Ur, Kish, and Lagash, followed its example to become prosperous commercial hubs themselves. Ur and Lagash were especially well situated due to their positions on or extremely close to the Persian Gulf, which allowed both cities to directly trade with the ancient commercial hub of Dilmun, a country that's believed to have once encompassed the island nation of Bahrain and the adjacent shores of the Arabian Peninsula. Initially, trading expeditions were carried out on behalf of the temple or ruler of the city, but by the 19th century BC, such activities had largely been taken over by the increasingly independent merchants who oversaw such commercial transactions with little interference from the state. Ur and Dilmun had especially close trade relations. At the time, Dilmun was a trade emporium where merchants from the east would stop to sell their goods and commodities to others who would then load them onto ships to take them to destinations in Babylonia. Merchants from Ur would export textiles, leather, sesame seed oil, and silver in exchange for raw materials such as copper from the land of Magan, whose territory today lies mostly within the modern country of Oman. Some of the copper may have been from the mountains of Magan itself, while other hoards were transported there on ships overseen by merchants further to the northeast. Religious institutions and the palace, that is, the state, did have a marginal role in the entire process, but it was primarily focused on collecting taxes. In the case of the temples of the god Nana and his consort Ningal in Ur, this generally amounted to 10% of the goods imported, which may have included not just copper, but also precious stones, coral, and ivory. While there were some laws and regulations, commercial transactions could often go awry. When there were disputes, it was generally up to the merchants, their partners, and customers to resolve any issues between them, or else be bound to whatever legal decision a judge appointed by the local ruler might decree. Perhaps the most famous and oldest recorded dispute that we know about comes from Ur. It involves a copper merchant named Ea-nasir and his disgruntled client named Nani. The problem? Bad quality or low-grade copper. We know about this and other transactions from the discovery of commercial tablets unearthed at Ur from a house that evidence seems to indicate once belonged to Ea-nasir. From what we can tell, Ea-nasir was a member of Alik Dilmun, which was an ancient copper guild based on the island of Dilmun. Unfortunately, membership in such a guild did not make him a better businessman, for within the house were found several letters from likely associates and clients that lead the reader to believe he was perhaps not the most scrupulous, and definitely not the most reliable, of businessmen. No letter, though, is more scathing in its criticism of his dealings than that of Nani, who sent Ea-nasir the following message. Tell Ea-nasir, Nani sends the following message. When you came, you said to me as follows, I will give Gemil Sin fine quality copper ingots. You left, but then you did not do what you promised. You put ingots which were not good before my messenger and said, if you want to take them, take them. If you do not want to take them, go away. Who do you take me for, that you treat someone like me with such contempt? I have sent as messengers gentlemen like ourselves to collect the bag with my money. But you have treated me with contempt by sending them back to me empty-handed several times, and that through enemy territory. Is there anyone among the merchants who trade with Dilmun who has treated me in this way? You alone treat my messenger with contempt. On account of that one trifling mina of silver which I owe you, you feel free to speak in such a way, while I have given to the palace on your behalf 1,080 pounds of copper, and Shumi Abum has likewise given 1,080 pounds of copper, apart from what we both have had written on a sealed tablet to be kept in the temple of Shamash. How have you treated me for that copper? You have withheld my money bag from me in enemy territory. It is now up to you to restore my money to me in full. Take cognizance that from now on, I will not accept here any copper from you that is not of fine quality. I shall from now on select and take the ingots individually in my own yard, and I shall exercise against you my right of rejection because you have treated me with contempt. Nani is incensed and very frustrated at the way that Ea-nasir has been treating his messenger, and by extension, himself. But let's take a closer look at the contents of the letter, as well as its context. As mentioned earlier, the tablet was uncovered in the ancient city of Ur, and is believed to have been written around 1750 BC. According to the most widely used chronology, 1750 BC was the year that Hammurabi of Babylon died. At the time, Ur would have been one of the southern cities of Babylonia that Hammurabi had recently snatched from Rim-Sin of the Kingdom of Larsa, an event that most scholars date to around 1763 BC. However, just about 2 decades later, under Hammurabi's son and successor, Samsu-iluna, there were massive rebellions in the south, and many cities of that area, at least temporarily, broke away from Babylon. And so perhaps due to the civil war that was going on at the time, Nani was complaining to Ea-nasir that his messengers had to travel through dangerous enemy territory. Nani also references a contract that was put for safekeeping in what must have been the local temple of the god Shamash. Shamash, whose name in the Sumerian language is Utu, was not only the god of the sun, but also of justice and the overseer of contracts. Oaths were often taken in his name, and it's actually standing before him that Hammurabi, in his most famous stela, receives the divine decrees that would make up his famous code of laws. As for Ea-nasir, he seems to have not fared so well in the end. The archaeologists who discovered Nani's letter are of the opinion that Ea-nasir's copper business may have ultimately suffered, as the remains of his house in Ur show that its occupant did not live in luxury. Perhaps the price of copper fell, or he was kicked out of the guild due to acquiring a reputation as an untrustworthy commodity dealer. This may have further given him a bad name and scared away his clients. Other documents found in Ea-nasir's house reveal that he eventually started selling other, less lucrative products, such as second-hand clothing. It's truly amazing what a cache of nearly 3,800-year-old cuneiform tablets can tell you. Thanks for watching. I'd also really like to thank the channel's patrons for making videos like this possible. These include, but aren't limited to, Grandkek69, Yap de Graaf, Pasta Frola, Michael Lewis, Daniel Allen, Danny Van Eck, Wanix TV, Robert Morgan, Strobex, Frank, Tim Lane, Sebastian Notado Correa, Michael Trudell, Leader Titan, Micah G, John Scarberry, Andrew Bomer, David R, Stephen Ball, Monty Grimes, Franz Robbins, Cyrus Meir, Dianastra, Nimrod Nir, Hypnosan, Brendan Redman, Faridun Dadachanji, Jimmy Daruwala, Anahita Debu, Gulistan Debu, Sher Kam, Farhad Kama, and all of the channel's patrons on Patreon for helping to support this and all future content. Check out the benefits to being a Patreon member, and if you'd like to join, feel free to click the link in the video description. You can also follow History with Sai on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as continue to listen to special audio programs on the History with Sai podcast. Thanks again, and stay safe.